you. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Wareham School Committee. Today is Thursday, January 20th, 2022. We have 4 members of the school committee here. One member is, April, is joining us remotely, so all 5 members are here at the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WCTV, and a recording is being made by Jamie Wixton. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I just want to say thank you to John from WCTV and Bob from WCTV for all the extra work you're doing, for the work that you're doing to give us this hybrid meeting. Thank you. We really appreciate it. First on the agenda is public participation. So is there anyone here who would like to address the committee? Seeing no one in the room, John is, really, no one, well, one person in the room. John is going to let me know if there's anyone on the hybrid meeting with their hand raised. No? No hands raised? Okay. Then we'll move on to good news. April, can you hear us okay? Does that mean she can't?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you, we can hear you. You're a little bit chopped up, but
Okay.
we can hear you. Yep. All right.
Let me try. Sometimes my audio and video don't like to cooperate, but I can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. We'll move on to good news. So does anyone have any good news to share? Mary?
So the good news I have is that I will not be seeking re-election, and it's a great opportunity for a new person to come on board. And I believe to get papers to be nominated, to be put on the ballot, come out January 31st, right?
Early February, I saw online, but
Okay.
yeah.
And you need, I believe, 50 signatures from Wareham voters. And so I hope that people will take advantage of this. And I also want to thank all the Wareham voters that supported me these 2 terms.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Anyone else? Well, my good news is I just came from the high school, from the middle school concert. Kevin was there also. And it was my first time at an indoor event for the schools in 2 years, I think. And there were so many happy people, parents, family members. It was really great. Mrs. Francesi, I'm sorry, I'm not saying her name right, but she does such a great job. It was really, really nice. So I had to leave early, but I'm really glad that I got to go over and see part of it. So that's exciting. All right, so we will move on to the discussion of the John W. Deacon Elementary School. And we'll turn it over to Dr. Shaverhead.
Thank you. So after much discussion and consideration with various members of the committee and of the community and of the school community, it would be my recommendation to the committee that we do not move forward in expanding our preschool program or before and after school care program. As we explored this, it was always our goal to work in collaboration with the community to provide a service and an opportunity to further serve our Wareham children and our community. Due to the present circumstances, this is not possible, and which leads to the school officially leaving the Deacon's building. We're currently in the final stages of removing supplies and equipment from the Deacon's school. The modular that we had to bring in when we consolidated for the elementary build will be returned next Thursday, and it is our goal for the final process to be completed at the end of next week. Once again, we thank the community for their help and support in building the new school for our elementary children, and we look forward to continue to serving our children in the best way we possibly can. So that would be my recommendation.
Does anyone have any questions? Jeff?
Well, as Kevin and I know, the Deacon's School was in fact part of the, excuse me, was part of the budget process because we felt that increasing our services to the community would also generate a surplus, which we could then apply to the LEA budget. In addition, we know that by the schools leaving the Deacon's School, we will owe, and they will take right off the cherry sheets, over $800,000. Is that still true? And has the town administrator opined as to whether that's acceptable to him?
That money has already been taken from the reimbursement at the very beginning. It came off the top, so there is no 800 and some thousand dollars that will need to be returned.
When you say taken from the reimbursement, what reimbursement?
From the money that we were to receive, it would be $800,000 less, but because we're 13 million under budget, it's really a moot point.
So they actually took the 800,000 from the surplus that we generated by not using the full 90 million.
Well,
They netted it against the project for the overall
Yes.
elementary school.
yes,
So, okay, I get it. So from the impact on the taxpayers, it's really zero because we came in under budget. Now, of course, if we came in over budget, they would have taken it anyway. So, okay.
The
Well,
way I
that's-
understand it, it was always figured in as part of the project.
I don't think, that's not my memory,
No.
but it's academic. If that's the way it's going to work, then it relieves a lot of pressure. So the only remaining issue is the approximately 150,000 or so that was built into the budget for next year that we'll have to find a way of coping with it.
yes. And we have several options to do so, and we'll be meeting very soon with the superintendent budget advisory and then rolling it forward to the full committee, explaining how we can make this.
When you say they've already taken it, when did they take it?
From the very beginning, I had a conversation with the head legal counsel at MSBA about this, and MSBA, she explained to me in a very kind manner, but the MSBA is not going to lose any money, and they take it right at the very beginning, before the.
So if we had moved forward with this plan, which you now recommend we don't move forward, would they have owed us
No.
$800,000?
Well, that's an interesting thing, because what we would have had to have done is to have a school in the building. The school definition is not preschool because the state does not recognize preschool. So it would have had to have been some other
It would have had to have been K through 12.
K through 12 program.
Even a pre-K program which is being operated at the new elementary school would not have satisfied them.
That's correct. And then we would have had to appeal to their board, would that count? And,
I understand.
yeah,
Okay, and then the last question I have is, what does all of this mean in terms of the status of the superintendent's offices, the central office?
right. We will be moving to the middle school. There's room at the middle school. We've been looking at where the offices will be and how we configure the location, and we're in the process of finalizing that move.
And the night school will be staying at the high school.
Yes. Yep.
So this building will be vacated from the point of view of the schools.
That's correct.
What's the timing for that?
We would like to be in the new offices by the 1st of March, because they would really like to have this building back.
Okay, thank you.
And while you're talking about the move, could you just talk about why you're not moving to East Wareham School?
Right. We are not moving to East Wareham School for several reasons. Number one, there needs to be work. It would be out of our budget. If we would have a CPA, if we were eligible, then that would take some time. And given the timetable of them wanting us out of this building, we just don't have time to finish it. I also did some research with the deed, and I was able to find the actual deed of East. It was back in 1911, and it came to us from a company in New Bedford. So I have it now at the attorney asking for some clarification on how we could possibly maneuver around the deed, if that's possible, to give the building back to the town or do something else with the building. So that's in process.
All right. Anyone else?
So basically, we're out of the, we don't have to seek rentals going
No.
forward. We don't have to worry about any of that going
No.
forward.
Right, right.
Which I think is helpful.
Which is another, reason why I think it's a good
Okay.
move, yeah.
So just one final question. So given the town meeting warrant article, when we vacate, which you indicated will be very shortly, it automatically reverts to the town. Is that a correct statement?
Yes,
I believe they consider it already.
right.
Okay,
They
Yeah.
do consider it
Yeah.
already.
so,
They're just, waiting for Dr. Shaverhood to say that she's got everything out.
so that also means that the utilities and expenses associated with the Deacon School will become the town's.
That's correct. We will be taking them out of our name and moving them to the town. And we've been asked to leave, if we're not using the furniture, we're leaving the furniture for the new tenants.
It makes sense until they decide
Mhm.
what will become of the building, yeah. All right. April, do you have any questions?
I don't at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will move on to the report of the superintendent,
Okay.
unless you had something else on that subject.
No, I
No?
don't.
Okay.
All right, so first would be the approval of gifts. There was a $20,000 grant gift from the Joanne Bennett and Christopher Makepeace trustees of the Maureen and Ann Makepeace Family Foundation to provide support to the Wareham Public Schools. I'd ask approval.
So moved. Oh, question?
Jeff?
So when a cash gift is just given to the schools, where does it end up going? Because this is not a directed gift.
It goes into an account, reserve account, that then is used to support our students.
So there's a specific, it doesn't go into any kind of revolver, it doesn't go into,
It's a revolving
it's a
account,
revolver.
yeah. Sorry, not a reserve, a revolver.
It's listed when we get a report of revolving accounts.
Mhm.
It's listed.
Okay, and access to it is, how is that, if you wanted to take $10,000 from that revolver and use it for something, would it come back to the school committee?
Through the warrants.
Through the warrants? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second it.
We'll do a roll call vote. Kevin?
Yes?
Jeff?
Yes,
Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
and
And
thank you.
myself, yes, with much gratitude to the Makepeace family. 500.
Next would be approval of bill and payroll warrants as listed in your newsletter.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, Kevin,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes. 500.
Thank you. Next is the student activity account designee. While the principals and designee have been listed, what I'm asking is a vote to list Sarah Russo as a designee along with Bethany Chandler, who you've already designated, for Wareham Elementary School.
So moved.
Second?
Just one question. Who is Tracy Donovan Lynch? Is that an employee at Town Hall?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll do a roll call. Kevin,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes. 500.
Thank you. I think it was last week or the last meeting, I had asked for a vote to move ahead, and somebody asked me about the language, and I incorrectly said, oh, yeah, there's no language. Well, I was wrong, and there is language, so we need to do the language tonight. So I will read it, and then just to make it easier, if you could just make a motion, I think would be the best.
Okay.
Having convened in an open meeting on January 20th, 2022, prior to the closing date, the school committee of Wareham, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority a statement of interest form dated January 20th for, I'm going to have to check this. It's not a statement of interest. It is for a feasibility study for the middle school located at 4 Viking Drive and the high school at 7 Viking Drive, which describes and explains the following deficiencies. It would be with the roof and boiler, and it acknowledges that by submitting this, we no longer guarantee the school building authority in no way guarantees the acceptance. So I would ask for approval.
Okay.
So, question,
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
what is this? It's not a statement of interest that we're voting on, right?
Right, we're voting on the feasibility, to move the feasibility study.
But this language seems to be associated with a statement of interest.
Yes, it does,
Are you-
and this
are-
is what they sent us.
That's what they sent you. Of course.
Do you want to move it to the end of the meeting, and maybe you can look it up while we're having a different
Yeah, that would be
discussion?
great.
Do you want to do that, just to see?
Yeah, that
You
would be
can-
great.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have to not bring it up a third time.
Yes, it would.
Right.
And I agree, if they send you this, it's their problem, and we don't want to make it ours.
No, I do not, because they will not like that.
Yes.
Right,
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
so let's,
Okay, let me move on, though.
okay.
In your packet, you received the financial report for December. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer it. What I would tell you is, once again, we're watching several areas very closely. We're watching sub-accounts, and we're watching transportation. And the percentage available at the end is what has been spent to date.
I thought it said spent,
Percent
it said
available.
percent available.
Right, but if you really look at it, it
Yeah.
really,
Yeah, I was wondering what those
it's
numbers, okay.
confusing. I didn't do this one. I mean, I didn't put those categories, that just came out.
Okay, so, Madam Chair, can I?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So this is through 12/31?
Yes,
Okay. So is this 4 months of spending?
yes. No, July,
So it's July, August.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 6 months of
months.
Yes.
spending.
Yeah,
And teacher salaries are prorated 12 months, correct?
yes, at the end, there's 5 checks issued,
But they've been paid as of July 1st
correct,
under this fiscal year budget.
yeah.
Okay, so if this,
Theoretically, because they start getting pay in August, or late August or September. And then, because they have 5 checks that carry them through the summer. So this would really take effect, basically, let's just use September 1. Because
Okay.
we've paid them through with the 5 checks from the previous,
I'm trying to get a comfort level. I know there's timing things that impact this. I'm trying to get a comfort level that we've used almost 60% in 4 months. And that's the biggest concern I have. One unrelated,
Line are you looking at, Jeff?
well, I'm told the final column, even though it says percent available, in fact, is not the percent available, it's the percent used.
Right, and so I'm looking at DECUS teachers, and the percent available is 67%, which would make sense.
But it's not, it's percent.
No, it says 33, so I'm saying
Oh, I
it's
see what you're saying,
67.
okay.
So if it's really 4 months, that's 1/3.
Yeah, that would be
So
fine.
that's right on, yeah.
Yes, that's right on, exactly.
yeah. And it's
Um,
similar, it's similar for the minute.
Okay. Is it accurate to say, and I hope this is a rhetorical question, but it is accurate to say that anybody being supported by the federal money is not showing up as being paid from these accounts?
that's a correct statement.
And what's that? This year it's about 600,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So just to follow up on his question, if I were that employee, just the difference is the account that's being charged is a grant, is a different account, not from the LEA.
Right.
Okay. All right. We talked a lot about the accounts being combined.
Yes.
So is that going to happen?
Yeah, so you don't, I'm trying to see if it's printed. So if you go to the next to last page, you'll see where it says Wareham Computer, custodial, et cetera, et cetera. And these, we're in the process of moving the Minot and the DECUS accounts into these. We're then we're going to be running two accounts for the end of the year report. We're going to have one where they're still separate, because we still are running 2 schools according to DESI, and that's how we have to report for the end of the year. So our teacher salaries, et cetera, will be Minot and DECUS, but we also will be putting them together so we can see the total expenses.
So it'll be the same numbers.
Same numbers,
Just
just reported
described
differently.
It's a presentation issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then moving forward for next year, everything will be combined.
So this is, I assume, a combination of yours and Erica's efforts?
Yes,
Kudos to Erica for stepping up.
yes.
Do we have any progress on the business office position?
No, we reposted and we have not received any applicants.
So what is the plan in that case, if we have nobody, what happens for the rest of this year?
We're going to continue to advertise, and I will assume some of the responsibilities, and Erica will have help.
Jeff?
At a certain point, does it make sense to pay some money for a professional search firm to enter the process?
I'm not even sure there's a search firm for business that does. We've called the MASBO asking for any retired business managers. We've asked if they know anybody that's finishing their license that would be interested. I mean, we're not sure who else to call and ask. We've contacted some accounting offices, firms, to see if anybody would be interested in coming and helping. Nobody has any interest in working in the schools from that, and it's a very busy time, of course, as well. So we're continue try to turn every stone, but we're having a difficult time figuring out who to ask.
The last time we had an opening for business manager, I thought that there were companies that provided that service.
It was in the western part of the state.
Okay.
I'll have to search that up again. I remember that,
Yeah. So like you said, somebody said.
Well,
it
that's a
would
little
be-
different. I mean, that's an equally legitimate thing to be investigating.
Mhm.
But I was thinking about literally people who have their tentacles into the network and are paid to find these people,
Mhm.
as compared to you spinning your wheels and not being able to find anybody. That's not a criticism. You're doing what any person would do to try and find them, but sometimes there are private networks that these search firms have because they're paid to have them.
Well, I was really hopeful that MASBO would be helpful.
That is the traditional route, yes. Now, am I correct that this person doesn't actually have to be MASBO certified, but they need to be eligible for MASBO certification, and they can obtain that certification during the time that they're working?
Not if there's not a licensed business, you have to have a licensed business manager.
Okay, so let's get real. So you happen to be licensed, correct?
I am.
Okay, so unfortunately, you're going to be disappearing, and what does DESI have to say about when you cannot find someone? When are they going to tell you, stop educating children?
Well, no, they're not going to say that, but hopefully we're now going to be entering a time when people are looking to start new jobs, July 1. And so we're going to continue to advertise. I mean, finding somebody mid-year is a pretty difficult task.
Understood, but if they were interested as of July 1, now would be a good time to get their name in.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
maybe it's we have the start date ASAP, or to be negotiated. Maybe what we all should do is put one up for July 1. We could show two different dates.
Maybe ASAP or July 1, whichever is more convenient for the applicant.
Yeah. Yep.
April, do you have any questions on the financial report?
I don't, no, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I have one more piece. I just want to share with the committee, on Tuesday, we received, actually Monday night, we received an email from the Commissioner's Office to join in to a Zoom meeting on Tuesday morning at 8:30 with the Commissioner. He had some information for us. So we did, and it's a change in testing. They've offered to provide at-home test for families, faculty, and staff. For faculty and staff, it will begin January 21st, and for families, it would be January 31st. So we were asked to please survey our staff to see if there would be interest in joining this program. And how it would work would be, if you choose to opt in, and you have to sign a permission form, then every 2 weeks, you would receive one at-home test, one box, which has 2 at-home tests in it. So we did, and we had approximately 173 faculty and staff who have expressed interest in participating. So we completed the survey and said, yes, we would like to participate. The next step is we will be sending notice to families, asking them if they would like to opt in. If they would choose to opt in, they need to sign a form, and then every other week, we will disperse a test to them to take home. So we're set to get started. The reporting is still basically the same, so if somebody is positive, they need to report to the school nurse, because we're still required to report to DESI our numbers. And so this will last at least until April 1st, and then we'll examine it at that point.
Go ahead, Jeff.
This coincides with the elimination of test and stay, correct?
It does. It does.
So you had to decide for the district you had the choice of one or the other, is that true?
Right. And so we asked the faculty, would they be willing to participate, faculty and staff? And overwhelmingly, they said yes. So that's why we're moving in this direction.
And so will you be providing tests to all students too? Is that what you said?
Any student whose families opt in, we will provide a test every other week.
And how will they opt in?
They will sign an opt-in form that DESE will have, and will be given those tests that we have to disperse.
And how would how does a parent of a first grader receive the test?
Yes, we're working on those
Okay.
logistics, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
April, do you have any questions?
I don't. Well, actually, we had no cost affiliated with the test and stay program. Is that correct? It was just a program we had to agree to participate in. So we're not losing out having switched. That is more my question.
What was the first part of that?
Sorry, April, we had trouble hearing the beginning of the question. Did you ask if we were given a choice to switch from test and stay to this program?
No, I was asking when we put the test and stay in place, that was at no cost to us. We're not losing any money switching to this program.
It's at no cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, I mean, January 21st, that's tomorrow.
I
So
know.
you didn't have much time to,
We did not. We expect them on the 24th, and we'll hand them out.
and I know you said you're working out the logistics, but a lot of that paperwork was put on the website for parents for the test and stay. So will it be the same
Yes, it will.
for this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be sending out notices to families, providing them the option, directing them where to sign in for the opt-in, and if they don't sign up, then they're not in. And we'll follow up with directions then.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right, so we will move on to the Superintendent Search Committee. There's a couple of items under that subject that I know Kevin wanted to address.
Thank you. So I've been in correspondence with Jim Hardy, who's the field director for the Southeastern region of Mass Association of School Committees, who's going to be working with us throughout the superintendent search process. And he sent out some material to me that I shared with the committee, and also shared out a draft that Joyce put together regarding the committee position. So as I see it, tonight, maybe we could talk about the size of the committee and the composition of the committee, positions, not individual people. We could look at the timeline that Mass suggested, and we could also look at the survey that Mass suggested and see if there's anything we'd like to add to it or any way we'd like to change it moving forward. So if we want to start first maybe with the actual composition of the committee and the selection process of the committee. I will say that when we talked to Glenn Kuchar from Mask, he was kind of pushing, I thought, towards 9 members of the committee. I think the smaller the committee, the more efficient it could be, but that you also have representation that you want to have. So the committees can either generally be 9, 11, 13, or 13, is how most committees are. Jim Hardy was suggesting 9 or 11 to me when I talked to him regarding that, because that affects the length of the interviews, the number of questions that are asked, the number of nights that people have to be out in order to have these interviews on the search committee. So I think 11, and from my just research, might be the number to go with, but that's something we can all discuss here this evening.
Okay. So everyone received the list, the draft list that I sent out. So if we just want to start with that. So this came from, Jamie was able to share with me information from the last superintendent search that Wareham did. And I also took some time to look at what other towns were doing, other towns that are currently doing superintendent searches and how their committees were made up. So that is this is kind of a combination of all those things.
And I would just add also that we're not going to be able to put everyone on the committee that wants representation on the committee. There's just not enough, I don't believe there's enough spaces. But what Mask was suggesting is that you look at the balance of the committee, that you can you balance out maybe the educational side of it with the parent side or student side. So there's some kind of balance, so it's not lopsided. So that's something else we should consider as we're discussing this.
And I would also say that we've received requests from a lot of people who are interested in being involved in the process, which is great, community people, school, retired school employees. So I guess I would just say to everyone that through that whole process, there will be focus groups, there will be meetings where everyone will have an opportunity to have their voice heard. Is that true, Kevin?
It is. And it's what we want it to be. Mass will make suggestions, but ultimately it's our decision.
Yeah,
And
well, I think it's important.
Right. And Jim Hardy will be here at our February 2nd meeting
Yes.
to meet with us in person during the meeting to answer questions we might have and offer some more insights.
Okay. So did you want to just start with this list?
Yeah, maybe we should look at like the number
Yeah.
first.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I would love to think there'd be tremendous consensus, but I think it does make sense for it to be an odd number. And rather than trying to, because I think all of the suggestions you've got here make a lot of sense. Rather than trying to cut too many, I would go with 11 and not 9. I think 9 would be insufficiently representative of the community, both the schools as well as the town itself.
Okay,
But that still means we have to cut 1.
right.
Or maybe substitute something if we didn't think of something too. It's possible. But I hear what you're saying.
I mean, this is 12,
Right.
yeah. But you're right, I think there's I think I would love to see more parents, for example, but then I'm not sure what I'd want to cut. That's the problem.
Right,
There may be people there who actually fulfill multiple roles. They may be educators as well as parents, which would be a nice combination.
Is there a reason there's not
I
a
would like to
union rep
see
on
us-
there?
I think if we keep the list as is and go with 13 and add a special ed parent as well as a normal matriculation parent, I think that would round out the list and make it an odd number.
okay. And that would put it to 13.
Mary, to answer your question, I think initially what I was thinking is that maybe one of those 3 teachers, one of them could be a union leadership position, and then the other 2 could be from schools that's not represented by that. So if we say, if it was the union president, for example, from Wareham Elementary, you'd have a middle school principal and a high school principal maybe on the committee to balance that out. So you have both.
Yeah,
Well, and that's why it says it would be appointed, we wouldn't choose that person.
right, yeah,
WEA would choose, so it would be
Yeah.
up to them,
okay.
who they
Yeah.
put on there.
I don't disagree with April's comment.
No, I don't either.
I think I'd struggle to try and cut, so rather than cut, maybe we should add. 13's an odd number, just as April said.
Right, right. Okay. So then as far as who appoints the people on the committee, is it, again, this is just a draft, so if we can change anything on here.
I think if we accept people's letters of intent, as it were, and then have have the school committee choose based on how many for each position are able to be filled, and then where you have the WEA choosing the teacher representation, I think that makes sense. And then as for like a student representative, obviously more apt to make sense would be a high school student.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, and
I wasn't
having the
specific.
principal make that decision, I think would be a good one. Based on their kind of the way that they accepted positions for the student representative, and then they had a voter that they could come up with a democratic process for the high school, like the school representative. And then I think the final would be, I think Kevin would probably have any, veto power as the chair of this particular committee.
So Kevin, tell
That's
me,
my-
who will approve the actual,
The impression I got from Mass was that we should choose as a committee, we should vote on.
the school committee should
Yes.
choose?
The
Okay.
school committee would have that's the impression I got. We can certainly ask Mr. Hardy that on February 2nd, but that's the impression I got when I talked to him before.
And we're also weeks away from convening this committee.
Right, he said actually, you don't have to rush to put the committee together, and also you want to let the public know, or the members, what the time commitment would be, so, and what the dates would be, so that they can commit. He said, you need people that are going to commit to this process. They can't miss a meeting. It can't happen. So we have to make that publicly known as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure how everybody else is going to feel about this, but in looking at this, I saw building principal and central office administrator. Those are two people presumably who would report directly to this person, which means there's a special emotion about picking your next supervisor. And I almost think it would be better off not to have someone who would be immediately reporting to this person, because by definition, they won't have a degree of objectivity that, say, an individual teacher would have, or a parent, et cetera. So I'm not against some member of administration, an AP, or even a department chair or something like that. But an actual building principal or central office administrator, I think, is going to be emotionally involved in that decision, because they know they're picking their next boss.
But you could say the same about the teachers, in a sense. They're picking the next boss also. I've never been on a search committee for a superintendent that
No,
hasn't
but
had
the
a
teacher
principal.
is, there are multiple layers between.
No, I get that.
Go ahead, Mary.
But, go ahead, Mary, sorry.
But you also have to remember that this is someone they're going to be working closely with.
I understand.
So I think it's important that you have principals on there, and especially a central administration. I would say the special ed person, it would be my pick, but that's up to us, the committee. I think very important.
I know you can go both ways on this, but I think, I'm not totally comfortable with someone picking their next boss. I understand they're going to have to work closely with this person, but if for some reason they feel a conflict that has nothing to do with qualifications, then all of a sudden, they've lost their objectivity.
Well, let's remember that this committee is not choosing the next superintendent, right? This committee is.
Understood, but they are culling the resumes.
They are. No, I understand that.
I hear the concern. I've been involved in multiple superintendent searches, and I've been on one as a building principal. So I'm going from that point of view, that I think the administration would, I think, feel miffed if they weren't included in this, quite honestly. And we don't have to, it's not about making people feel good, but I just think they should have representation from that level on this committee, personally.
Yeah, I do agree.
I can
with
understand why you might feel that way.
that. And Mary, I agree with you as far as the central administrator with our special ed population. Yeah. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
But that gets to April's point, which is the 13th member should somehow be representing the special ed community.
Do we have a special ed parent group,
Yes,
an
Yes,
active one?
yes.
We do?
yes.
Okay. All right, so how do you want to go about it, Kevin?
So it sounds like well, I guess we should, how do we feel about 13?
Fine.
It seems like
Yes.
4 yeses, and I'd rather stay 11, but I'll go with the committee.
I'd rather
on
stay
that.
11 too, but I'm not in favor of cutting, so.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
agree.
problem.
I'd
Get
rather,
it.
11 is a better number
No,
than
I
13.
get it, and I like April's
but-
suggestion of a special ed parent as
Yeah.
the other person, too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we have that, and then the rest, we will decide, I mean, do we agree with all the others? Is there anything that should be substituted with something else on here, I guess would be my question. So AFS CME rep is what exactly? That's
K-
That's a representative for the union of bus drivers, cafeteria, and custodial.
Right.
I'm glad to hear that because I was going to say it looked like we were missing transportation representation.
Yeah, no, and that, again, that will be up to that union to choose that person. So they will just forward to us
Right. That's fine.
their choice. So the only, I believe, the only union that isn't represented on this list is the clerical.
They're part of the WEA.
They are.
Yep.
But we have, on this list, we have specified that it's a teacher from each level. So we could take out that specification and put in 3 people put forward
WEA members?
by WEA. Does that seem,
Yeah, because I don't.
One
think
from
we have
each
a parent
building?
there either, do we?
we don't,
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, as April said, it could be one from each building. It doesn't have to be a teacher.
Right.
Could
let
be
the
a para-
WAA decide.
It could be,
Yes.
it could be a para, for example.
Yep, and that's up to them, however they
Right.
want to choose their
let them do it.
representation,
Yep.
yeah. Okay,
So are we set then?
Well, we're set on the first column, right?
well, okay, so parent, community member, a parent, a parent and a special ed parent, so a parent,
I
do we
think
want the
should.
PTA to choose that person, or do we want to?
Well, but doesn't, yeah,
The only thing about the PTA is that it could make some people feel excluded if they're not, haven't already been a member or involved in the PTA, they might feel excluded, and that's certainly not the intent.
You could also go with school council.
But that would be a parent from each building.
I understand, but they'd have to figure out one.
Yeah, but school councils don't work together.
I know they don't, but there used to be multiple PTAs.
There was.
There was, but now there's one,
It's just
which is
only one?
great. But still, if I'm a parent who hasn't had time to join the PTA, but I want to be part of this, I might feel, you know,
couldn't we have parents submit their interest and potentially
us.
why they're interested?
That's
and-
that's
and-
fine.
Yeah,
and
so
then we
that's all I'm
choose?
saying.
I
Forget
think
about-
That's fine.
I think people
Okay.
declaring their intent and then letting us decide as a committee who we think should.
So just take out PTA
Yeah.
and
just
we can
school
decide.
committee. Okay,
My hope is that we have lots to decide from.
yes,
And that's where the calendar becomes important, because we don't want people who can't commit to that time.
Right.
right. And then a community member will be the school committee. Town official, I did receive an email from the town administrator that there was interest in several himself included, being on the committee, but the numbers just don't support that, so,
Why don't we just say town administrator or designee?
okay, perfect. Are you okay with that?
So I take it I'm outvoted on the building principal. Won't be
think
the
so.
last time. Okay,
So then we're good on the right column now too, right, I think?
I think so. Do you want to just review it just to make sure, and then we can vote?
Okay, so, well, so student, we said, did we say the principal is going to oversee a process to pick a student?
oh, that's a good point. I love the idea of the high school student council deciding. We are student-centered, and this is another affirmation of it being student-centered. Let the student council pick someone.
Yes, because they're all represented, all grades are represented on the
yeah.
student council, so, yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then okay, so for administration, are we going to choose the administrator, or are we going to let them decide which one wants to be represented on the committee?
I think we should hear who wants to be involved and then ultimately decide.
Well, I think you're right, April, because schedule-wise, like you said, the timeline,
Yeah.
they have to be able also,
that's
they're
a big-
busy,
That could be a big deal for
very
them.
busy, yeah.
So we'll let people put in, and then we'll decide?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a
Would that
cost.
be something, if the principals have too much on their plate, that an assistant principal could take that role as well?
Would
I'm
make Jeff
sorry, I
happy.
didn't hear that. What was that?
She said if a principal couldn't take it on, could the assistant principal?
Oh, yeah, well, that gets
I was
to,
just,
But
That's-
then if we haven't
that's
given
fine
all
with
the
me.
other assistant principals the opportunity, let's start with the principals and
See
see.
where it goes, but we will decide to see who wants it, okay?
Yep.
Central office administrator, that'd be us, school committee,
Mm-hmm.
the teachers, or whatever designated WA wants will come up, but only one can be union leadership, the other two will be non-union leadership,
So
correct?
we'll just say 3 members of the WEA,
right,
all units.
that represent all three schools. Right.
Right, but
Yes, all
only
three
one of
schools.
which can be union, a leadership
Leadership.
position, but they have that option.
I agree with that. Does everyone else agree with that?
So what did we decide for administration? It's going to be school committee, but we'll ask for interest?
I think that's what we just
Yes.
said, yeah.
Okay, so it's school committee.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. April, can you hear what we're saying about the WEA membership?
I can, yes.
Okay.
So we're going to offer only one leadership position, but the WEA to choose a designee, one from each building,
Yes,
not necessarily a teacher.
correct.
Yep.
Yep, okay. And then
And then the cafeteria, custodial, transportation will choose a representative to submit to us.
Mm-hmm.
Parent will be chosen by us, community member by us, town official by us, although we're given, it sounds like the right of first refusal to the town administrator, and he can make a designee after that.
Right.
Yes,
They would
Yeah.
submit that name to us, okay? And then the special ed parent, same thing, school committee would choose that.
okay.
All right?
Okay, but just to make it clear for anyone who's watching our meeting, if anyone is watching our meeting, that we'll make an announcement when we're looking for members. Right now, we're just organizing the committee,
Correct. Yes.
and then as soon as the timeline is ready.
Right, we have to finalize the timeline.
Yeah.
And that would be the next step, okay?
Okay.
So do we want to look at the timelines, the suggested timeline right now that?
Do we want to vote on this committee
Oh,
makeup?
Okay,
Move approval as described.
Okay,
Second.
Second.
all right, roll call, Kevin,
yes?
Jeff,
Yes?
Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes, so 500.
Okay, so the timeline that they sent, again, it's a draft, but the idea was to wrap everything up by the end of April. So we would announce superintendent by April 28th, and then they work backwards to where we are. He was thinking his meeting with us the February 2nd, but would be a little bit ahead of the game by at least choosing the positions today.
Okay,
But this was the suggestion that, once again, that Mask is recommending for us.
okay.
And it might have to be a couple more meetings for interviews. Well, here's the week of March 21st, so
Yeah,
that's basically, could be every day then, depending on, because of the committee size, but that's the way it is, so.
Okay.
now I guess this is important, but it's a real fine detail. The amount of time involved in that week of April 11th will very much depend on how far down we have weeded the applications. If we've weeded down to the top 10, then that's a ridiculous amount of time, but if we've weeded down to the top 4 or 5, that's less so. Is there a recommendation from Jim Hardy as to how far
Committee.
down the search committee should weed it down to present to the school committee?
That we have not discussed yet. I'm sure we'll
Okay.
discuss that on February 2nd.
It's kind of an important detail, and in fact, I think it's a detail the school committee overall should decide. I mean, theoretically, what if the search committee gave the school committee 2 people, you know? I think most school committee members who weren't on the search committee would say, that doesn't work for me. So we may want to,
10 seems like a lot.
Yeah.
oh, I intentionally picked 10
Oh, okay.
as a ridiculous number.
Okay,
Okay, I think my sense is that a lot of search committees weed it down to the top 4. I have no idea whether that's the good number or not, but I think that's what a lot of committees do. But I think we need to agree on that as a school committee, so that the search committee has a mandate.
I agree with that, but I think maybe that's something we could do at our next meeting on the
Fine.
2nd. I
Fine.
think, just to hear what
Yeah,
Mask's experience is in that, I think, would be good
Okay.
to know, but I agree.
okay.
Anything else regarding the time frame?
Yeah, this is,
Basically,
oh,
after our
this is
meeting,
great, this is,
the position gets opened. I mean, I know initially when we met with Glenn Kuchar, he described what are we looking for in the candidate, how do we want to describe ourselves in a brochure. I'm sure that'll all be part of the meeting on the 2nd, but that doesn't, I mean, the brochure, that's what we're hiring Mask too, I guess, to come up with this. So,
it feels condensed. The search is closed on March 11th. That's,
well, the advertisement on here, the advertisement starts on February 3rd, which is the day after our
I'm not
next
saying it's
meeting.
wrong, I'm just
Well,
saying
no,
how it
I'm just
feels.
wondering, like, that means that we would have an advertisement, job description ready to go at our next meeting. That's,
right, he was just making the point that there are several vacancies in the
Yeah,
Eastern Mass right now, and that we want to jump in,
we're definitely competing.
right.
so will you or someone be working on that job description before, we're not gonna sit at our meeting on February 3rd and create that job description? Will there be?
Doesn't
Right.
one exist?
It must be.
Yeah, I don't think we're starting from a blank
no,
sheet. As a matter of fact, my guess is Desi has one,
Okay.
and Mask probably has one too.
I would think so. I can inquire. I'll ask.
So
about
if
that.
if that gets sent to us between now and the 3rd, that shouldn't be much of a problem. And in fact, I suspect what's in it has a lot of state requirements. I don't
Well,
think we
right,
have,
but wouldn't a job description also provide a description of our school district for a person who might not be?
that's not my understanding of it. That's more of a profile of the community than it is a job description.
Okay,
Because I think the state really basically decides what the job description of a superintendent is. You could probably, if you wanted to start from scratch, you could just take that big, thick MGL book, and
no thanks.
which we're not going to do because it's been
Right,
done.
Right,
Can I suggest, Kevin?
Yep.
That, and now I'm thinking about, parents in particular, and for that matter, maybe even school administration who are thinking of wanting to participate. We may want to attach to these dates the number of anticipated hours that would be expected to be devoted to this process.
and the meetings are in person?
Well, that's a good question. Like, I think if we did focus groups, they probably, I'm guessing if we decided to do focus groups, that I don't think they'd be in person.
No, but I mean meetings of this committee.
I think that's the
Ideally,
plan right now, the ideal, if we can do it, I would say definitely.
Okay.
So I have a question, and I don't even know if it's accurate, but I had always heard that the superintendent in Wareham was required to live in Wareham. Is that a true statement?
I've never heard that.
No, okay. Because I can remember, like, back with Jim Collins, he kept I was told he kept a place over on a condo there that, so he could claim that he lived in Wareham.
Really?
Yeah.
it's actually a very interesting question, Mary. And that issue, not just as it pertains to superintendents, but as it pertains to other municipal positions, has been debated around the state.
Right.
And my position on that is, it's great if they do, and if they say they're willing to do that, that's great, but you perhaps needlessly are forced to reject the best candidate
Right.
because they
No,
don't live here.
I don't think it's a good idea. to
I don't think it's a
require
good idea either. But if someone wanted to commit to being here, to me, all other things being equal, then that's a really good
Yeah.
thing.
But not as a requirement.
But not as a requirement, right? But it's
Well,
an
because
interesting,
it's not right to, if someone is settled, say, I don't know, in Barnstable or wherever, to make them up and move, and
Right,
no, that's,
especially with the price of houses.
oh, God, yes.
right.
No, that's a good point.
So to the timeline, if we could add, and I think you can work with Jim Hardy on this, and we can also discuss that a little bit on the second too, but number of meetings with the Committee of 13, generally, how many, he'll know right away how many nights that is, how many interviews you can get in, probably 2, I'm guessing at that point. But that's something that we can come up with as well. And then, because realistically, search committee, it's March 10th is when the search committee is going to meet. So we have to have everything kind of back off from that date from ourselves, from March 10th, to get it out to the community, let them know what the hours are, the number of days, and give them enough time that we can then look at our information. We meet on March 3rd, so I'm guessing March 3rd is when we're going to have to, that's our
The
deadline
committee, yeah.
for choosing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So mid-February,
right, so
which seems so far away, but it's really not.
I'm okay personally with the timeline. It is somewhat condensed, but I think it almost needs to be at this point.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
So we all good with, I don't think, do we have to
Yeah.
go on the timeline too,
Yep.
Joyce?
I would just say, so school committee interviews, the week of April 11th, just make sure that, is everyone available that week? No one's going on vacation that week. April, that week?
Yeah, I should be here.
Okay.
Oh,
I have no, it'll be my birthday present, I guess.
All right.
Okay, and then the last piece of business today was to kind of look at the survey that they had given us and to see if there's something we wanted to add to it, or if this will be sufficient to give us some information, and the search committee some information going forward.
The only thing on this, on number 4, where it says identify the top 5 skills and abilities, there's nothing on there about special education. And just because of the high percentage of special ed in Wareham, I thought we could, maybe
What
we
would you
could add
like it
that.
to
Does
say,
anyone else-
Joyce?
Sorry?
How would you like to word something about special ed in here?
I don't know, Mary, how would you, this is the list.
Thank you.
Be knowledge of special ed regulations and,
Yeah,
I don't know.
something like, yeah, understanding, or having a solid understanding of the special education regulations and responsibilities to their timelines,
Okay,
something to that effect.
okay.
I'd like to add something to number 2.
Thank you.
Just, if we're looking at things that have affected our district or that I've heard parents
ask about, I don't know if you feel like enrollment covers that, or if you think school choice or if we have school choice and enrollment and maybe one checkpoint or as a significant or, issue that the superintendent will need to address just as in case, just to
Well,
help with that. I don't know if we cover your enrollment, if you guys think that, or if you think that it would need its own category.
well, one of the bullets, April, that I know Glenn Kuchar shared with us said something to the effect, it's kind of a generic, but if you put Wareham in it, you could say something like, making Wareham Public Schools the school of choice for Wareham residents was the language that they used as an example of attribute going forward. I mean, I don't know if you could put that with enrollment or,
Yeah, I think having that as a separate possible option.
okay?
It's a good piece of subtext.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah, it sends a message to,
yes.
yeah, okay. All right. And this does give groups, whether it's parents, employees, residents, students, recent graduates, a chance to speak, and we can look at that information.
And that online survey will be done on our website?
That's what we'd have to decide, I would imagine, so,
Okay.
but we'll find out, okay? So I think those were the three main issues to kind of discuss tonight.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Anything else they wanted to talk about on that subject? April?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
So we will move on to Cape Cod Collaborative Capital Reserve Fund. So I am the representative on the Cape Cod Collaborative Board, and they have asked us to just review their proposal to create a capital reserve fund. So I shared that with everyone. It does not require any funding. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm waiting for you to finish.
Well, that's pretty much it. So go ahead.
So I read through the whole thing, and it says it doesn't require any funding from the districts, but by definition, money, they say they're going to get this from grants, and I forget the other thing, but the last thing they were going to get it from was essentially surpluses,
Right,
right? And
yes.
surpluses, by definition, means that the districts overpaid. They got more revenue than they needed. So if they now have an incentive to build up a reserve fund by making sure that they charge as much as they can, I'm not totally comfortable with that as a source. That's like taking town free cash and just throwing it into a stabilization fund, which is fine for a town, but it's not the same thing for a collaborative.
So at the end of the year, what else would they do with this? Do these funds come back to the town?
Well, they could use it, for example, to lower the price that they're charging. They make money off of transportation, for example. If Paul were here, he'd be kicking me.
You would?
Yeah. But the point is, they're not supposed to run a surplus. And if they keep that surplus and keep charging the same amounts, they may very well keep running surpluses, and to stick it in the reserve, into a reserve, okay, but I guess I've been away from the collaborative too long. When they have a capital expenditure, where do they get the money from? I can't remember how it's actually obtained.
Well, I haven't been a member long enough to be able to answer that question with 100% surety. But I will say that it's my understanding that any amount that's approved to go into this capital fund would be approved by the board, which is made up of
That's true,
people like us who serve on that board from the towns who paid them the money.
yes.
So no one would be approving
I can't remember, was there a cap on this fund? I saw an example which had millions of dollars in the example.
I think there is a cap, and is it 10 million?
That's a huge amount.
I believe it's
So
10
the
million.
bottom line is I could vote for it if there was a smaller cap.
Yeah, I want to say it's 10 million. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but again, no money is going to go into this fund unless it's approved by the districts who are paying them.
True.
And they are running other programs for profit, right?
Intended to generate a surplus. Is that what you mean, for profit?
Is that, I'm asking.
Well, I mean, they can't generate a profit. What they can do is generate a surplus
Surplus, yeah.
that gets poured back into the collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it comes down to, they will occasionally have cap, where do they, I can't remember when they need another bus, do they purchase it? Do they lease it? I can't remember.
You're asking me questions I can't answer.
It's
Yeah.
been too many years.
Yeah. So obviously I don't have all the answers to your questions, but the reason that I'm okay with it is because they're not doing anything that's not approved by the board.
Understood. But I guess I'd be happier if the surplus generated, what do they do now with a surplus? They have to apply it to next year's budget? I assume that's the case.
Yeah, I'm not
Right?
sure.
I mean, they have to have a budget, and it has to balance like
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
else's.
Yeah,
And if they've got revenue left over, they can use that as a source of revenue for the following year, instead of putting it into a reserve fund. So I guess I'd be happier if the surplus continued to be used to offset expenses from the prior year, for the subsequent year, rather than poured into a reserve fund.
well, I guess what I would expect to happen is them to propose, just to keep it easy, so would they have $1 million surplus? I would expect that they'll say, well, we're going to take 90% of that and apply it towards next year, and we're going to take 10% and put
Okay,
it in.
your basic argument is they're looking for us to vote on this, correct?
If there is no vote, it gets approved. So, but yes.
Has there been a vote of the Board of Directors?
No, I believe that it's a vote by all the member districts.
Okay, so if the member districts don't vote, you're saying it's
Automatically approved.
Okay,
So I could have just not brought it to our attention, but I thought it was important that I do, so.
okay, so I've expressed my opinion, but I don't need to vote on it.
Okay, all right. Well, I wish that wish I knew you had those questions ahead of time. I would have either asked you to call Paul yourself, or I would have called and
Oh, maybe I will.
gotten you those answers. Yeah, so, okay, well, you don't have to vote, but does anyone else have any other questions?
I have a question.
I'm not sure I'll be able to answer it, but go ahead.
Okay, no, yeah, you might not, and that's fine, but I was just curious if they let you know, like, what would happen if a district did not vote for this? Like, say they got a non-vote going to automatic approval, would a no vote change that on their end?
I am not sure about that, April.
Okay.
All right, so would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Moved.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Kevin?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes,
Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 500. Thank you. I'm happy to call him and get those answers, but you're probably better off calling him yourself.
yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the policy on therapy dogs.
I'm not gonna vote on unless, was it Benedict? What was his name?
Bentley.
Bentley. Unless Bentley is here to advocate for himself.
Oh, sorry. I'm sure if we invited him, he'd come back, but, I say therapy dogs, but the name, the policy is actually assistance dogs. My only question about this is, we have a policy for service animals. It's similar, but not exactly the same.
Yeah, very different role.
Yes,
For students.
service animals for students, right.
I suppose it theoretically could be for a teacher, yes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, so then we'll just keep both because they address two different, okay. Okay. So this is the last, at our last meeting, we introduced the policy, so it's our policy to now vote to accept the policy if that's what we choose to do. Does anyone have any questions or changes they would make to this?
We will take Mansfield Public Schools off the bottom.
Yeah, we'll do the, I'm sure Jamie will take
Yeah,
care of that.
good idea.
I also think that any puppies that are up for consideration should be brought to us to play with first.
We'll let Carl know.
I was disappointed to hear they only last 12 years. Anyway,
That's unfortunate. Most dogs that age, that's about, I mean, that,
I know.
you know,
It's the worst part about
yeah,
owning a
it
pet.
is.
Yeah,
I'll move approval.
okay.
Second,
Roll call, Kevin,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
April,
yes.
and myself, yes. So 500. All right. And then on to the policy review.
Okay, so when we met a couple of weeks ago, I'm looking at the, let's see, wait a second. Okay, student activity account. Was that, wait a second. Just 1 second here. Okay, so the first policy, facility stewardship, we tabled because we're looking into a few other, what some other schools have done, and also increasing the amount of money for construction projects, so that'll come up to us at a later date.
Okay.
The reconsideration of instructional resources, we looked at that and we made no changes, so we would vote to accept as is.
so moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, Kevin,
Yes?
Yes,
Jeff, Mary,
Yep.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, student exchange program, we just added, we changed some language from skills in English sufficient to function in regular classes to having proficient English skills in order to participate in classes. That was the only change.
some grammarian was made happy.
Well, also, the idea was that we didn't want struggling students with the language. That's tougher on the teachers at that point if we have the option of who we could accept. So that's it for that.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Roll call, Kevin,
Yes?
Jeff,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
April,
yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, the next one was initially called internship site. We added internship and student teaching site. We added nurses, student teachers, and we we're more specific about Corey and fingerprinting, and again about student teaching.
Okay.
so moved.
Second.
Second,
Roll call, Kevin,
Yes?
Jeff,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
April,
yes.
and myself, yes.
The last one had the most changes is the student activity account.
I'll say.
We had the old draft and the new draft, which is revised for language formatting, but also just for procedures and protocols. And the committee voted unanimously to make these changes.
So what were the biggest, is the audit, is that? I see it's highlighted. Is it new or is it a change to what is there?
Which, what page are you on?
Anything that's yellow is brand new. Anything that's crossed out.
Oh, okay, so number 13.
The timing is different. I mean, this says we need to consider before the school year starts, absent some new funding source.
Right. We do it now close to the beginning of the school year, but this is before school starts.
Yeah,
Okay. And that there will be an annual audit.
yep.
Oh,
It'll still be annual.
it'll still be annual, okay.
And of course, we consolidated the Minot and Deacon's.
Right.
Were these changes, Kim, that you asked for, or?
Yes, that we had worked with our person that does our bookkeeping for the school. Oh, sorry. Yes, this was the student activities, the person that oversees student activities as far as bookkeeping. We worked on these changes to bring them in more alignment
Okay,
with what we do.
all right. And then the only other thing I would say is that under class accounts, I know I've had this conversation many times with Scott. He's not here, so I feel like I shouldn't have it without him. But I feel like the classes at the high school, the practice has been to leave the money at the high school for, for use for different things. And my iPad just died. But there is an option in there for some of the money, if not all of the money, to be put aside by the students to use in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Tradition
Maybe.
has it they make a gift,
yes.
a specific.
I'm not sure they're given an option otherwise.
An option to do what?
To put some of that money aside for future use.
Well, they do have that option now.
Right.
You're saying you're not
You're
sure,
saying
that-
No, I'm saying that I don't think that,
you're saying they're
that
not
they
aware
knew.
of it?
yeah, I wasn't aware of it.
Oh.
Yeah. But I know I've had the conversation with Dr. Shaver Hood. I've had it with Scott many times, so I feel
What does he
feel like I
say?
shouldn't have it here without him, so I'll wait until he's here to have that himself. But I think it's important, and I think it's important that kids are made aware. I can't read it anymore. Is it all of the money could be?
Says just transfer the monies to a checking account. I don't see why you couldn't, possible methods of disposition, why you couldn't do a combination.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I wouldn't, depending on how, first of all, they shouldn't be ending with much money at all, right? They should be using their money,
Right, generally, they
That
should try
they
to offset
fundraise.
costs for everything
Right.
in the senior week and everything, but
right?
if they do have it,
And it's always used for something to benefit the whole school, I'm not, but it would be nice, even if they took some of that money to put aside for, well, when I was in high school, we put it aside for postage, but they don't have to do that anymore.
as the treasurer of the class of 79 from Wareham High School, we still have about $20 in
We
our,
still have an account, Class
The union
82,
account.
yeah.
Is it earning interest?
well, not very much.
All right, well, we'll talk about that with him. So is there a motion on that?
Sure, so moved.
Second?
Okay, roll call, Kevin,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
and myself, yes. April, sorry,
Yes.
500. That was it for the policies, right?
Yes. Yep.
So the only thing I forgot to mention under good news, I'm so mad at myself for not mentioning it, is someone brought it to my attention this week that there's a new tab on the website, and this is something that I've asked about so many times, so I was very excited to get this news, that there's a new tab on the website. It's called Events, and under that tab, there's a calendar, and it includes all the events district-wide at all the different schools, and it's really exciting. Well, I thought it was really exciting. So if you have the opportunity to check that out, like I said, it's on the website to the right under Events. All right, so we will go back to the MSBA
Yes.
language.
Thank you for your patience with this. So there'll be two. And the way I got the amount, I did research on various projects, looking at the square foot that our buildings are, and then took it up about 5%. So that the town of Wareham, really the school committee, will appropriate the amount of $95,000 for the purpose of paying costs for the roof feasibility study of the Wareham Wareham Middle School at 4 Viking Drive, Wareham, Massachusetts, including payment of all incidental costs related to, of which the town of Wareham may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, said the amount to expend under the direction of the School Building Committee to meet with this appropriation. The school committee, with the approval, we will not be borrowing, but is authorized to borrow the said amount pursuant to MGL Chapter 44 or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The Wareham acknowledges that the MSBA grant program is a non-entitled discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any cost that the town of Wareham occurs in excess of any grant approved and received by the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town of Wareham, and further appropriate hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon the affirmative vote of the town. We will not be bringing this to the town to vote because we're funding the feasibility study. And then if there's any borrowing pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the feasibility study agreement. Again, this is not a reimbursement from MSBA. If we do get it back, it will be past the fiscal year and it will go to the town. That's what happened before. All right, so the first amount is $95,000 for the roof feasibility study. The second amount would be $75,000 for the boiler project at Wareham High School, which is located at 7 Viking Drive. Same language.
Jeff?
So it references a school building committee. So is this a new school building committee?
This would be a new school building committee once we get past the feasibility study.
Okay.
So I would ask for vote approval. What will happen, if you choose to approve this, it will go to the Board of Selectmen for approval on Tuesday night, and then it will be submitted to the MSBA, and we will move forward with feasibility studies. And I would say both projects are desperately, desperately needed.
Yeah. We'll have two principals shooting us if we don't.
So
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Kevin?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 500.
Thank you.
Right. Does anyone else have any business that we haven't already discussed that they'd like to? I'll just say that our next meeting is Wednesday, February 2nd, at the middle school. So that is one of the meetings that was changed from the original schedule at 7 p.m. All right, thank you. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Kevin, yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, April.